Hello boys and girls, and welcome back to World of Warships with Uncle Jingles. Yes, I'm going for the creepy introduction today. Let me know how it works in the comments. So, yeah, World of Warships. This is Kosulf in the Pan-European Tier 10 destroyer, the Halland. I think by now we've seen enough Halland games to know pretty much what this ship is all about. Its main weaknesses are its low speed. It only has a top speed of 35 knots without a speed flag, and it doesn't have smoke. Fortunately, however, unlike certain of its predecessors, its concealment isn't terrible. It's not great, but it's definitely not bad, and providing you equip and train the ship for it, you can get the concealment down to 6 kilometers. It is, however, a fairly big target, so if you do get spotted, the low speed means it's going to be very difficult to disengage, and the size of the ship means you're not going to be difficult to hit. And of course, the complete lack of any kind of smokescreen generator means that you're not going to be making your own concealment anytime soon. The unique selling point of these Swedish destroyers, however, has always been their torpedoes. They are incredibly fast. The Halland's torpedoes have a blistering speed of 86 knots. They're basically underwater rockets. The downside, of course, is that individually the torpedoes don't do a huge amount of damage, and again, this is a feature of the entire Swedish destroyer line. I can clearly remember one occasion in my Tier 7 Scania, I don't know how you pronounce the name of these things, where I came around the side of an island to find an enemy Dallas at point-blank range, unloaded all of my torpedoes into him, hit him with all of my torpedoes, he survived, and killed me. That doesn't tend to happen in the Halland, however, because it finally gets enough torpedoes to actually make a difference. The Halland can fire 10 torpedoes from 2 launchers, and it also has access to a very, very narrow torpedo spread option. They also have a good range, 15 kilometers, which when combined with the, if you build for it, surface detection range of 6 kilometers means that the Halland is easily able to get these torpedoes away without being spotted, providing the captain doesn't screw up. And the final selling point of the torpedoes, of course, is the reload time. By default, the Halland's torpedoes only take 100 seconds to reload. The good news does not stop there. The Halland has, for a destroyer, extremely potent anti-aircraft defences backed up by a couple of charges of the defensive fire consumable. This does not make you immune to air attack. Nobody is immune to air attack in World of Warships, except for, aircraft carriers, because that's historically accurate. But it does at least give you options when there's a carrier in play. And finally, we need to talk about the Halland's guns. It doesn't have many of them, only 4 guns and 2 turrets, but it has such a frighteningly fast rate of fire with a reload of only 2 seconds, giving all 4 of these guns a rate of fire of 30 shots a minute. Oh shit. I think those may have been Yugamo torpedoes. And there goes more than 22,000 of Kosulf's health. Not the best start to a battle. He does have a heal, but he's only able to recover a couple of thousand hit points. And of course he was radared. Then he gets hit. Fortunately, not set on fire, although his engine has been crippled right after using the damage control to control the flooding that would otherwise have killed him. Fortunately, he does have the, whatever they're calling the last stand skill these days since the commander rework, so he is able to keep moving. Runs up into the map border in an effort to get away from whatever it was that fired off that radar, and, well, look at how far away those torpedoes are already. Like I said, top speed of 86 knots. Assuming you haven't taken any commander skills. Oh, and a hit. But, well, yeah. And again, just illustrating exactly what these torpedoes are like. Scored a torpedo hit, only did 6,400 damage. These torpedoes, individually, are supposed to be able to do over 10,000, which is not a lot. But then, of course, you have to take into account the target's torpedo damage reduction. So unless you hit a destroyer, which doesn't have torpedo damage reduction, he's never going to get the full 10,700 damage that the torpedoes are theoretically capable of. And the team have just lost another destroyer. They lost the Jutland earlier, they've just lost the Yolo Emilio. They very nearly lost the Halland. And they still might. Even after using his damage repair party, Kosulf still has less than 2,000 health. He's now using a second charge of his damage repair party. But he, of course, is not getting a particularly good return on his investment, because unlike fire, high explosive or flooding damage, the damage repair party consumable can only heal back a fraction of the damage inflicted by torpedoes. So even after the DRP has done its work, he's still on less than 5,000 health. But then a whole bunch of good news arrives at once, because the YOLO Emilio did not YOLO in vain. He managed to take the enemy carrier with them, and that's fantastic news for a destroyer that's pretty much started this game with 0 health and doesn't have a smokescreen. The team then loses their Georgia, but then the torpedoes that he launched into what previously had been an extremely suspicious-looking smokescreen find a target, and he sinks the enemy USS Black, with the subsequent torpedoes finding, but not sinking, another target. And the kill on the Black is extremely welcome, not least because it's one less destroyer for them to worry about, but also the Black has the option of taking the surveillance radar consumable. And when, of course, you're in any kind of destroyer, regardless of how much health you have left, the less radars available for the enemy team to bother you with, the better. The enemy carrier, however, even though it died 2 minutes ago, is still going to be a problem, because there are its rocket attack planes, entirely capable of catching him and killing him, or just spotting him and watching him get killed minutes after its mothership died from the other side of the map. That's all I'm going to say about that. Well, except for well done to the enemy carrier player for continuing to make himself useful long after he's dead. Despite his relatively low speed, Kosulf was able to see that he absolutely needed to DD Mao and get the hell out of there. Fortunately for him, not so fortunately for the friendly Mogador, the Mogador got spotted before Kosulf did. And again, the thing with aircraft is, I mean, while rocket attack planes are no joke, when you're in a destroyer, it's not so much the rocket attack planes themselves, it's the fact that they're spotting you for everybody else. And there is some fire coming in from the eastern end of the map. Who is that? That's a very suspicious looking smokescreen. Well, the Black's dead. The Friesland had a faster rate of fire than that, and in any case was spotted at the other side of the map by friendly dive bombers. It could be the Yugamo or the Shimakaze. It is the Yugamo, which means those are probably Shimakaze torpedoes. Which means that Mogador is in a world of shit. And despite the... I never did actually get around to talking about how good the guns on the Halland are. We were interrupted by Kosulf getting torpedoed for 22,000 damage. But despite how good the guns on the Halland actually are, even though there are only 4 guns in 2 turrets, they have a 2-second reload, so the Halland is actually capable of putting out a fairly frightening amount of gunpowder. But despite that, he absolutely definitely doesn't want to make the same mistake that the Mogador just did and come out shooting, because he'll get spotted and he doesn't have the health. So instead, he launches some more torpedoes into that extremely suspicious looking smokescreen and is rewarded with a hit. Unfortunately, his torpedoes individually are kind of shit. He hits the Yugamo, so he does the full 10,000 damage, but it's still only 10,000 damage and the Yugamo survives. But he does definitely need to defend his battleships, the Thunderer and the Amagi, from the Yugamo over there. And... actually, were those Amalfi torpedoes? Because the Shimakaze was spotted slightly further away. I think that's an Amalfi full-speed smoke. Right. Looks like the Yugamo's smokescreen is dissipating. And pay attention to the RPF indicator. There, it just shifted. There's the Yugamo. The team have just lost to Frederick the Great. They've now lost 5 ships to the enemy team's 2. He could probably kill the Yugamo here, but it's uncertain whether or not he'd actually survive doing it, because, yep, there's an Amalfi, and you absolutely don't want to get shot at by an Italian heavy cruiser's semi-armor piercing ammunition when you have less than 10,000 health. He's used the 3rd charge of his damage repair party. They're now all gone. And this 8,000 health is all he's ever going to have. He's got the engine boost running, 10 seconds left, but he was never really that fast to begin with. Fortunately, neither's a Yugamo. And I don't know if those torpedoes were launched at the Thunderer behind him, or whether or not the Yugumo is also running RPF and knows that he was being pursued. Either way, he dodges the torpedoes and he's not going to let that Yugumo get away a second time. And there is his second kill. And he does it while only losing slightly less than half of his remaining health to a single salvo from the Yugumo. Because Japanese destroyers' guns may be shit, unless of course you're an Akazuki, Kitakaze or Hirugumo. They may have incredibly slow reloads and ridiculously slow turret traverses, but holy shit, they hit hard. Things are starting to look a bit better. They've actually gone ahead on kills. Although they are still behind on points, and they did control 2 of the 3 cap circles, although the central cap at Bravo is now being pretty heavily contested. However, the only enemy ships that we know of that are still lurking around the vicinity of Capture Circle Charlie are the North Carolina. The Amalfi has pulled back, which means that despite the fact that the team have now just also lost an Izumo, and the enemy team have widened their lead to nearly 200 points, there is an opportunity for Kosulf to sneak Capture Point Charlie out from underneath the enemy team. He's just going to have to either kill or drive off that North Carolina. And the North Carolina's probably not feeling too confident, given that he's now all alone over here, and holy shit, what just happened? Yes, I saw it, Akazuki. The enemy Shimakaze just scored an own goal. And torpedoed and sank the Amalfi. So that's nice. They're now just less than 100 points behind, although the enemy team are now flipping Bravo, so Kosulf is probably going to have to move and do something about Charlie sooner rather than later, and then of course RNGesus giveth and RNGesus taketh away. The team have just lost the Aegir. The torpedoes, however, are on track for that North Carolina. Or are they? No. Perhaps the North Carolina is going to eat some torpedoes from the second salvo. But he's managed to avoid all of the torpedoes from the first one. And 5 torpedoes alone, even if they all hit, is not going to be enough to take out the North Carolina. And he's probably, in fact it's pretty certain, that he's going to dodge all of the second wave of torpedoes too. The enemy team are now flipping all 3 of the capture circles. Kosulf's team are down to 4 ships. Fortunately, his torpedoes do reload very quickly. He just waits to catch sight of the North Carolina again. Come on. There you are. A lot of destroyers wouldn't have the torpedo speed to be able to take this shot. By the time the torpedoes reached the North Carolina, it would have been around the other side of the island up ahead. Not so the Halland. These torpedoes have a speed of 86 knots. The enemy team are once again 200 points ahead. They have flipped Alpha. They're in the process of flipping Bravo, although they are being reset. And it's pretty much only Kosulf here in Charlie who's keeping his team in the game. Now, how are these torpedoes going to do? They do look a lot better. And of course, the thing about the Halland's torpedoes, because they are as fast as they are, is that when they're spotted, they leave very little room for manoeuvre. Can the Amagi and Thunderer finish off that Alaska? Oh, there are the torpedoes on the North Carolina. Whoa, that's a lot of damage. And there's the torpedo armament expert skill. So his already fast-loading torpedoes are now reloading even faster. And he's managed to flip Charlie, and the Amagi managed to kill the Alaska before it could complete flipping Bravo. Unfortunately, the Amagi then almost immediately dies to shots fired by the Musashi, but the double flood that Kosulf inflicted on the North Carolina was not contained. Don't know why the North Carolina didn't use his damage control. He absolutely did not have it on cooldown. I guess he just decided it wasn't worth the effort. The team are still well over 100 points behind. There are now only 3 of them against 4 enemies, but they do have a carrier, so they have the spotting advantage. And the enemy team have just lost their last radar. Unfortunately, the Thunderer is pushing forward. He probably means to close in and finish off the Alsace over there, but what that means is that he's actually pushing forward into a crossfire from the Yamato and Musashi's 18-inch guns off on his western flank. And I'm sure the Thunderer has the best of intentions, but, well, giving your broadside to a Yamato and a Musashi is a very risky move, and it's one that he really doesn't need to make because the Alsace is doomed. If the Implacable's torpedo bombers don't take him out, Kosulf's guns or torpedoes definitely will. But the Thunderer is committed, he pushes on, and he does get the kill from the fires that he set. Only losing 3/4 of his remaining health in the process. He then turns in towards the Yamato and the Musashi, whether that's to attempt to bow tank their 18-inch guns or just to get an island between himself and them. Either way, it's the right thing to do. The team are still behind on points, although the gap is about as narrow as it's ever been, and since they managed to sink the Alsace, he was unable to flip Bravo, and even if he had, Kosulf would right now be flipping it back. Here's the thing. There's now just under 5 minutes of this battle remaining. The Thunderer now looks as if he's moving in to attack the Musashi. Can you see why that is the wrong thing to do? Maybe the Thunderer can take the Musashi, but it's just as likely that the Musashi can take him. In fact, even more so because the Musashi has the backup from a Yamato behind him. And the Thunder has gone down, and all he's actually succeeded in doing is handing the enemy team an even bigger points lead. And that smokescreen down to the south, that means that the Implacable is in serious trouble as well. Yep, Shimakaze torpedoes. So, right at the point where the team absolutely needed to try to make the most of this 2-cap advantage, and not lose any further ships, handing more points to the enemy team and increasing their lead, they're basically now hemorrhaging ships left, right and centre, and they only had 3 ships to lose to begin with. And now they only have 2, and the Implacable is hanging on by a shoestring. In fact, the Shimakaze is so confident of success that he's abandoned his smokescreen, he's chasing him down and firing at him with his 1 or 2 7mm guns. As is, of course, the Musashi, and if he's in range, I'll bet you the Yamato is too, so we're almost certainly about to also lose the Implacable, giving the enemy team an even bigger points lead. Yep, there goes the Implacable. The enemy team are nearly 200 points ahead, and there's only 3 minutes of this game left. Now, with the Implacable sunk, there is nothing to prevent the Shimakaze, which is an extremely fast destroyer, a lot faster than a Halland, from pushing up north. And if he's been paying attention, he's going to know that Kosulf basically doesn't have any health. And remember, the Shimakaze's guns might have a long reload, they might have a very slow turret traverse, but it's got a fair few of them, and they do hit very hard. 2 Shimakaze salvos would probably be enough to finish off Kosulf's remaining health. Fortunately, the second spread of torpedoes did the job on the Musashi. It hasn't put him ahead on points, but it has bought him a little time. The question is, can he win with the 2 caps that he has? Because the Shimakaze has started off reasonably far away from them, and the opinion being discussed in chat is that the Shimakaze, because it did chase the carrier down, is too far away, and has just been spotted once again. Zombie carrier aircraft proving their worth long after the carrier has died. But it's likely that the Shimakaze, despite his speed, is too far away, and there isn't enough time left for him to be able to actually do anything. Holy shit, that Yamato just fired blind. Did you see that? The Yamato saw that the cap was being flipped, knew that he was being targeted, and fired some shots right around the corner of the island, which is where he thought Kosulf was lurking. And that would probably have killed a lot of destroyer captains who constantly chase the kills instead of, trying to win. How many destroyer captains would have died there by trying to get as close as possible to the Yamato to launch their torpedoes? Kosulf, however, has got one eye on the clock and one eye on the scoreboard. He's now ahead on points. He's just finished flipping Alpha. He knows the Yamato can't catch him. Now he just has to get his little prayer mat out and pray to our Jesus that the Shimakaze is trying to flip Bravo or Charlie and is not heading this way as fast as his little Japanese steam turbines will carry him, because the Shimakaze right now is really the only threat. Just in case the Yamato is pursuing him, fire some more torpedoes in the direction indicated by RPF, which it's still pointing towards the Yamato, which probably means that the Shimakaze, yep, he's trying to flip Bravo. Too little, too late. The only thing the Shimakaze is going to succeed in doing is ensuring that Kosulf wins. He's got a nice big island between himself and the Yamato, who probably couldn't spot him at this kind of range anyway. He's managed to score another 2 hits on the Yamato, another torpedo armament expert buff. But it wasn't the kills, it wasn't the damage, it wasn't the number of torpedoes or gun hits that secured the win on this one. It was the points. And I can't begin to tell you how refreshing it is to see somebody who understands that it isn't necessary to win any harder than you're already going to, takes the win, and doesn't throw the victory away by chasing after more unnecessary kills. Kosulf in the Pan-European Tier 10 destroyer, the Halland. Congratulations, well played. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.